Welcome to the podcast, People More Interesting Than Me. I'm your host, Michael Strumsky, where every week I host a new guest with unique professions, personal adversity, or even maybe a strong opinion or two. And if you haven't hit the 5 stars review on Apple Podcasts, please hit it now before you forget. Running a podcast is a surprising amount of work, and more reviews converts into a wider range of future guests. This week, we talked to Cyn and Jay. Cyn and Jay are the hosts of Eyes Wide Open. Jay was homeless on the streets of Toronto. He built his business while homeless and pulled himself out after almost 3 years. Jay's a natural teacher who taught Cyn how to change her life. 4 years ago, Cyn left her marriage and Jay helped her get clean from painkillers and helped her with her panic attacks. We talk about how they've been consulted to help boost OnlyFans accounts and what they're trying to accomplish with their podcast, Eyes Wide Open. Enjoy.
Awesome.
Yay.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. It's Cyn and Jay, right? Okay, perfect.
It's Mike, right? Michael
yes.
or Mike?
Yes. I don't care either way. There's too many of us already anyways. Is podcasting, is it like your main job, or do you guys each have your own job?
No, it's our main thing.
Yeah, it's our
Okay.
passion and joy.
Awesome. And how many episodes are you guys in now, right?
We have
25.
20. Well, yeah, we have 25.
One thing I find the most difficult is finding guests. And I feel like
No, I thought people had because since we don't interview anyone, I don't know.
Yeah, we solved that issue.
I've
We don't have guests.
Yeah. I've reached out to people and they're like, "Oh, I have a lot of people now. Can we book next month?" And or in a couple weeks. So I assumed everyone had tons of guest opportunities.
Well, I think there's two things to focus on. One is your pitch for guests, because the quality of your pitch determines, who's magnetized to you, who resonates, who bothers to apply. If your pitch sounds serious enough, or the right blend of serious and casual, then you'll probably get committed people. And then secondly, what's your screening process for guests? Once they say yes and put their hand up and I want to be in, do you qualify them somehow? Do you run a little test? Do you tell them, hey, find my name on my website, or to see if they're detail oriented or if they can follow basic instructions? You know what I mean?
you would be surprised how many people, it's funny, I work at a company and you would think so many people have common sense and all these things that and I might even say that, and I might, I'm just blind to it. It's one of those things, and that's one thing I hope to never change, is that I will always be able to change. That's my biggest thing.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
We love that.
Yeah, we love change.
We love change. Yeah. When I saw the name of your podcast and you're people more interesting than me, and I was like, this dude is more interesting than me and anyone else. So I was like, I really want to go on your show.
So since you bring it up, how did you guys meet?
Well, okay.
And just to preface this to people, if I haven't already prefaced it in the intro, which I probably did, you guys are co-hosts on a podcast. What's the podcast called?
Eyes Wide Open.
Wow. Did you guys practice that? That was amazing.
No.
It was very in sync. It was amazing. Sorry, keep going.
Okay, so Jay and I had a mutual friend who YouTube interviews, and he was working with Evan Carmichael at the time. He's a C-list celebrity. He's got 3 million subs on YouTube, and and Jay was his brand consultant. Yeah, and so they worked together. And anyway, so I met her through Evan's content, so I knew who Jay was. She did a YouTube interview with him, and she posted it, and I was really angry with my ex-husband at the time when the notification came up for Jay's interview. And so I wanted something to distract me while I was hate washing dishes. And the video starts, and he looks at the camera and he's like, "Fuck the past." and like yelling. And so immediately got my attention. And I watched the whole interview. It was like 45 minutes standing there in my kitchen. After I turned off the water, I was fascinated. Everything he said was just unusual and unique. And he had this amazing energy and perspective about life and homelessness and relationships and just everything. And I fell in love like immediately. So I went to his Instagram, and he had like 500 posts on, and I scrolled down to the beginning and I read every single post, comment, reply, like any conversation. Like I wanted to know him. I just thought he was fascinating, and all the things he was saying and sharing. It was a lot. Back then it was brand building and growing your business, entrepreneur stuff. And like, even then it was just all new and amazing, incredible things. So he had a newsletter back then, and I tried to sign up and it wasn't working. I tried with 5 different emails, and finally I was like, I don't know how to reach this person. And I couldn't stop thinking about him. And I even told my ex-husband, who was like, well, if you like him, then reach out, say something. So I did. And he helped me get on the newsletter. And he thought he was going to go back to work, and that was it. But I kept stalking him, and we became friends. And here we are. That was 4 years ago.
So when did you guys decide, I guess, after that you met, when you're like, let's do a podcast? What came into your head for that?
Well, she was playing around with that idea for a while. And for me, I'm just happy to get my work out in any format. I'm format agnostic. I love every art form. I love every medium. I'm comfortable with all of them. I'd happily do, video, audio, written, Morse code. I don't care. Spoken, what do you call it? Motivational speaker, you name it. I'm ready. But
well, this is our
she wanted to do a podcast.
Yeah. And this was not our first collaboration. This is
we were in a kink company.
Yeah.
Kink clothing line.
Yeah.
We had a motivational book.
Yeah.
We had like an entrepreneur group, Facebook group, or like a mentorship group, or a mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
We had 2 of those. We helped
OnlyFans girls build their businesses.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
A lot of coaching.
I was the Bimbo Whisperer.
The Bimbo Whisperer. I like that.
It's a killer name.
Was that your hashtag? That sounds really cool.
Yeah, actually, the account's still up. You can check it at the Bimbo Whisperer.
Yeah.
So what was that like? I mean, the only thing I
met a lot of bimbos.
Met a lot of bimbos. Is it? Because I mean, I don't really. I mean, obviously, I have a belief what an OnlyFans is, but is it just?
I got to see behind the scenes with some of the girls that shared with me, but
whatever. Either way, it's a legitimate thing.
And I mean, they're selling their time. They're selling basically their image, right?
Yeah, and it's the oldest profession. I mean, it's just digital now.
Yeah, and most of them don't interact physically with other people, so it's just them, kind of like what we're doing, basically. But
it's like a naughty podcast.
Yeah.
Basically. And what are give me one of the stories. I mean, I look on Instagram interviewing like the top people, and they're like, yeah, I made $200,000 in a month. What are some of the realist, I'm not trying to downplay how much they make, because I imagine they make a lot of money, like the really good ones. The ones you were working with, how much?
We targeted beginners because they need the most help. The ones who are crushing it, they're naturally hot, or they had some connections, and they're doing fine. Like, they didn't need our help. And it's more lucrative if we go pursue them as a target, but it's less fulfilling. Like, you want to help people, right? And the ones you want to help are the ones that are struggling to get started or in their early days. They're anywhere from $0 a month to a couple grand a month, and they have the potential to be huge. They have the potential to do what the other OnlyFans girls are doing, the famous ones that everyone hears about in the news stories and headlines and stuff. But there's a lot of mindset changes that have to happen. There's a lot of brand changes that have to happen. They've got to make some tweaks in their business and their model and their merchandising and how they approach all this stuff. So yeah, the potential is there to like buy a house in a few months or buy a car in a few months, or, pay for your whole family to live in some other country. But the people we were helping were really far away from that.
Okay.
But it's totally doable.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them don't realize that they had a business, and so that there were multiple layers to this.
Yeah, they just thought they were selling tits for money. Like,
yeah, and that's actually,
it's like, you need to treat this like a business.
yeah, that's like 10% of what they're doing.
Yeah, there's way more to it than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, from an outside perspective, like I have like no idea what's going on, but the way you describe it, I mean, it's exactly like a business. You look at like any celebrities, you look at Coca-Cola, you look at all these businesses, and it's funny. It's just that's why they're more than LLCs and corporations. Like I think I was listening to something where it was saying that corporations you need to treat as a person, just like you treat like Justin Bieber. It's sad, but he like people see Justin Bieber and they don't actually see him as a celebrity, which doesn't I don't know if I'm coming across right. It's more of a brand, like rather than an actual physical being. That's all I was trying to say. I think I went off on a couple hyperboles, but
well, no, it's a great point. I believe what you're getting at is that it's very easy for people to dehumanize others or dismiss or write off companies or people or not see the similarity or connection between them, because a company is really just the dream started by one person or a group of people who wanted to do something in the world, right? It's backed by people. And so you can never get away from that. What the corporation does is reflected in the people, and what the people do is reflected in the corporation. I believe that's what you're getting at. It. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Greater than the sum of its parts. That's kind of
the whole, I guess, giving it
the
sum of its parts.
Yeah. So when Cyn wrote me, she was talking about how you used to be homeless, right?
Yeah, 2.5 years.
How did you get to be homeless, and then what kind of brought you out of it?
So in my early 20s, I quit my job at the grocery store and dumped my girlfriend in the same day. And
and you guys are on Toronto. I don't think we addressed that. Okay.
Toronto represent the six.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing. We the North. So yeah, quit my job, dumped my girlfriend, and as a kid, I was raised to believe that I'm really smart. I was in the gifted program, got tested, my IQ was super high, blah 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 blah, and this gives you a complex. Like this makes you cocky and lazy, and you expect to get by on these smarts through your whole life, as if this is going to somehow magically make you a good person or something. That's not the truth at all. And I was not great back then, and so kind of had an ego, and I was like, well, whatever, I'll just start my own business, I don't care, no problem. I was wrong. And after a bunch of attempts at making ends meet with my own business, I eventually got kicked out of where I was living, and then I was on the street 2.5 years. But I refused to get a job. I had a lot of dignity and pride, and it humbled me and it hurt my ego and it taught me a lot of lessons. But what I knew deep down is I would rather die than work for somebody else. So that wasn't happening.
That sounds great that you developed, I guess, that mentality. So I assume you haven't done it since.
I have not.
Good. And so I guess, how did you work your way out of it then? When do you think, let's put it this way, when do you think you got on your own 2 feet again by yourself, obviously?
Well, so it's a pretty crazy story, but after 2.5 years of trying to get out of homelessness and to get my business off the ground, and I was running it from the streets and, getting just enough to get some food here and there or shelter sometimes or what have you. And I got pretty depressed. Like, you try anything for 2.5 years with no results, and I imagine you'd also get pretty depressed. Even the most positive or tenacious people may suffer in that situation. So since I was so depressed, I decided to just give up and kill myself. And I was like, I'm still pretty talented and pretty smart, so at least I can do a better job at ending my life than everything else in my that I've tried to accomplish. So I found the best drug that the veterinarians use to put animals down nicely, and I found a source in Mexico, and I saved up enough. It was the most I'd ever saved up on the street. And when I finally saved up enough, I could have used it to, I don't know, do something productive, but I was done. I was like, hell no. This is the best investment I've ever made is going to be in this drug. But they needed an address to ship it to. And I had a friend that I could ship stuff to, but it would open a conversation. Like, he's like, what is this? And why are you doing this? And what is this? And now he's going to talk me out of it. And I'm like, oh, man. I just felt drained. Like, nothing is going right. Nothing works for me. I can't even become unalive the way I want to. So it was soul crushing. And I ended up crying in an abandoned mall bathroom, like snot pouring down my face, just like facing reality that I was the genius high IQ failure who accomplished nothing and was worth nothing and did nothing. And after that, like a switch kind of flipped. And I stopped trying to do what society wanted. I stopped trying to be a productive member of society. I stopped trying to use my talents to help others. I stopped trying to serve the community or be valuable or run a business or make something of myself. I just gave it all up. And I started doing whatever the fuck I wanted. Can I swear on this podcast?
Go to town.
All right. I'll keep it to a minimum. But
no, you're fine.
The point is that I started approaching life from I'm going to do whatever is in me to do, like whatever I feel like doing. I don't care who judges it or what it looks like, or if it's the last thing I do. If this is the last thing I do before I die, I want to be happy with my choice. So I chose to lay on a park bench for 36 hours. Well, I didn't set a time, but it ended up being 36 hours. And I was like, whatever, I'll just dehydrate or starve here. I don't know. I don't care. I'm done trying anything. But weird things happen when you start following your heart and doing exactly what you like, everybody else be damned. And after 36 hours, ballpark, I started feeling like blisters on my shoulder blades, and I was boiling from the summer heat, Toronto summer heat. And I was like, whatever. Now I feel like getting some air conditioning or some shade. So I went to the library and I set up my laptop there, and I was just screwing around. And I started giving away advice on like forums, internet forums. This is back when internet forums were bigger than Reddit, they were popular. And as I gave my advice on various ones, people were eating it up. They loved it. They were like, man, dude, you give fire advice. This is genius wisdom. Why hasn't someone else told me this before? This is better than—
I don't think you mean fire. I mean, back then it was probably dope, right? Dope or like flop. I don't know. What year was this? What year?
You're right. It was dope and fly.
Dope.
Or Gucci. Gucci was another good one. I don't know if Gucci hit Toronto. Sorry, keep going though. I apologize.
No, this is excellent flavor for the story. Well done. Anyways, people loved it. And eventually I posted so much like helpful advice on Evan Carmichael's forums that the moderators started running out of stuff to do. They were like, this guy answered everybody and he gave fire advice, and it's better than what Evan would say. It's better than anything. This is amazing. So I got on Evan's radar, and then he invited me out to some charity event, and I was like, well, whatever. I have no money. I'm not even sure I can travel there. But again, if it's the last thing I do, at least I said yes to the invitation, right? Like,
yeah.
And so one thing led to another, and I ended up doing a ton of stuff with Evan and collaborated for over a decade. And, we crushed it, and it was all uphill from there.
Yeah.
Downhill.
Say he took Evan's brand from boring and bland to Believe Nation, and it's pretty big now. And like Evan has worked with Gary Vee and Tony Robbins and Tom Bilyeu because of Jay. And
well, not 100%.
Well, not directly, but he helped him build the brand that he has to get him to work with these people. So Jay knows his stuff, and he's a life changer. He changed my life.
So tell me a little bit about the podcast you guys are doing.
Well, we help you unfuck your life. that's what Jay did for me. And so we get on there and I ask him a bunch of questions and he gives these unique, amazing answers. That perspective that I saw in the very first video the interview that I saw him on, I bring that to the podcast. And like, he's amazing. He has this a way of thinking that most people don't at all. And so I felt really greedy that I was getting all this great, wonderful, juicy goodness about any question I had. And I just felt so greedy. So I wanted to do something fun. And the best thing in our relationship is our conversations. We have amazing conversations. And there's so many times I was like, man, I wish I was recording that. Damn, why was I recording? So now we do. Now we record. So and yeah, it's out of all the businesses we've had together and separately, well, for my part anyway, it's my favorite thing that we've ever done.
Yeah, she asks really sincere questions. Last week it was about networking, and most people hate networking, but I gave a really different perspective. The week before that, I think it was about men's rights and how society has failed men. And so she asked me a bunch of questions about that. The week before that, I think it was trans activism or something.
Yeah, trans activism.
A while back, it was the Silicon Valley Bank crash, and I explained it like I'm 5, or like you're 5, or like they're 5.
Everyone's 5.
So yeah, basically. So it goes all over the place. And the main thing is fresh perspectives or fresh views on taboos. And we cater to people who feel lost or struggling or stuck or far from their goals. And I love demonstrating it, but it takes a sincere question. So I need someone who really is like, man, how do I grow my podcast? Or how do I get an OnlyFans business started? Or how come my relationship is failing? I need like a sincere question to work with.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when you sort of mentioned like, oh, I have an issue getting guests. And I was like, there's 2 things you could look at that are going to help with that. You didn't actually ask a question. It was kind of unsolicited advice, so my bad. But
no, it's okay. I feel like I have ADHD, so I know it's a big thing where I like to try to finish or anticipate what people are going to say to me so I can have the answers. Or do you also have ADHD?
Oh, I think I have the opposite.
You have the opposite. Oh, what's the opposite?
Yeah, I'm like hyper focused, and when someone asks me a question, I get super focused and present, and I just stay with the question until they're satisfied, like until they're happy with the answer and ready to move on. And only then do I relax my focus and start, moving on to other things. Though when I was a kid, I did get bored easily and maybe still do, but I don't consider it ADHD or ADD or anything like that. I just consider it like hyper focusing on a topic until I understand everything about it. And so now there's no point in giving it further attention, right? Like, why would I, of course I'm going to switch topics. I'm done with this one. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
So let's look at it this way. 5 years down the line, where do you guys see the podcast, or where do you guys see the brand, as we kind of talked about earlier?
Taking over the world.
Blown up, and everyone knows who we are.
I mean, to be fair, that's what every podcaster wants. I mean, why not? So let's put it this way. What do you want your image? You've got all the money in the world. You've got 3 yachts. What do you want your image to be?
So our passion and mission is to help people, really genuinely help people change their lives. So Jay helped me go from an addict who was miserable and anxious and depressed, and I hated my life and myself, and I was mean and hateful. And he helped me love myself and find my value and my worth. He taught me that I could make money just because I have that inside. And he taught me like a million things about business and life and love and just myself and parenting. And he doesn't even have kids of his own. And he just helped me change my life in every single way possible. So I really want to help other people do the same. And like the money, yeah, it's nice. I want to be able to not think about it and like let it flow, whatever. But really, I want to help as many people as possible. I don't want anyone to feel that anxious and angry and scared and lost and alone anymore. Because I did until I met Jay. And he just brings so much love and light wherever he goes. And he really, like he said, how focused he is. He will take any topic or whatever issue you have, and he will focus on it until you have a solution and you feel good about it and you understand it and you know what to do the next step when he goes back to his stuff and you leave the situation. So I want to bring that more and more to as many people as possible. So when we say like take over the world and be huge, it's really to reach those people who are where I was, those people who just they feel like they don't have any purpose or they're not valuable, because everybody is valuable and everybody's value just grows every single day. So yeah, I want to help as many people as possible.
Yeah, I just tell people I want to evolve humanity.
Yeah. So what I imagine is you guys want to be kind of an image of trust where you can come for anything you guys need, and basically, like you said, Jay, kind of a well thought out answer, not just answer, but I guess just like you were talking about the OnlyFans girl, but more of not just support, but well thought answers, plans forward, rather than just thinking it's like, for example, not just a camera, but more of a industry, a business, stuff like that, kind of even changing perspectives. So you could
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love changing perspectives. Permanent change is what we're all about, right? I said evolving humanity. I'm not joking. Every individual can evolve, can become a better version of themselves, but no one teaches them how to change or how to change permanently. They get a little hit of dopamine from the media out there, and they're like, oh, I'm going to be a better person. And then tomorrow they're back to the same old thing. And it's like permanent change is available. And I can't guarantee it for every single person that we touch, but it's definitely the focus. And you're far more likely to get it from eyes wide open than you are from anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna start the final question just because I want to hear the answers from both of you guys. So it's gonna take a little bit longer.
Okay.
So Cyn, we're gonna go with you first. We're gonna go and I'm only gonna repeat the question once, Jay, and I imagine you're gonna remember it, so I don't have to repeat it again. But
Oh, he will.
that's good. That's amazing, because nobody wants to hear me say it twice. What's something that your parents did that you'd like to pass on to a next generation? And what's something that you'd want to do a little bit differently, or maybe something new you want to throw in the works that you've acquired in the world?
Well, my parents were really full of worry about money and about the future. And it's something that I've had to take a lot of steps to try to get past. And unfortunately, I already instilled that stuff into my kids. So I'd like in the future for them to learn all the things I have learned about money and really apply it and understand and really, really come to terms with all the stuff I taught them was wrong. and all this stuff I'm teaching now and learning now, this is better. This is good. This is the third way. This is the new perspective. And I would really love to teach that to my kids and really anyone that I come into contact with, because most people have issues with money from their parents. So.
And what good things did you want to pass on to parents?
That's what the good things from my parents. Well, yeah, the way they love. They may not do it with in the right ways or ways that they should. But they really do love. And I'm their only child, and it's not just me. They showered a lot of that onto me. And I would like to pass that on to everyone that I'm around and I meet. And my kids, I definitely did, because I'm very affectionate, annoyingly so, even now. But yeah, but I want to be that way towards everyone.
Well, that's great, especially the part like, I mean, I don't know your age, but you're around my age, and the fact that you are telling your kids like your opinions completely changed, that's a huge step. Just like we were talking about change. Like if my mom would have said something like that at like our age, that would just like blow my mind because I was talking to somebody today about doctors, and like when you're growing up and even when you're a teenager, you think doctors have all the answers for like medicine. And then when you get to this age, you're like, it takes like 3 or 4 doctors, and even then they might not be able to diagnose you. And it's just crazy how your absolute I don't know, opinion of people
Face.
changes. Yeah, exactly. But
Yes.
just being able to say, I was wrong this early in your life, to such like raising your, we're doing it differently. That's amazing. That's like phenomenal.
Thanks.
I agree.
Thanks. And you know I've said it a million times on this podcast, but it's because of him. Because honestly, I was one of those people that had to be right all the time, and I could never admit when I was wrong. And if I did, it was like super painful. Now I'm like, yeah, that was wrong. I did it today on a job. I made a mistake about something, and I was like, oh, my bad. Like I did a side thing for someone, for a client, for just a one-time thing, and there's a bunch of people there, and I was like, oh, I made a mistake, my bad. And they were all like, what? I'm like, I'm so used to it now that it's,
Yeah, it's funny. So many people are afraid of making mistakes in front of other people, but as soon as they do and they own it, it's like the cool kid in high school who doesn't care about skipping school, but you would never do it, but they did it, and you're like, man, I wish I would have skipped school.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah.
Okay, what about you, Jay? I'm not going to repeat the question.
I got it. So the one thing that my parents gave me that I would like to continue passing on to future generations, because it was so good, is personal integrity. And this can show up in a lot of different ways. Like, for example, my parents wanted to teach us discipline, and they wanted to make sure we were behaving well, but they both worked at that time. And so they were both out at work, and so one of us misbehaved or something, and the other one called mom at work and tattled on me. Let's just say it was me. Tattled on me. And as the eldest, I should have been, more responsible and more mature and not mistreating others, but I, whatever, I was doing kid shit. And mom left work middle of the day. No excuse to the boss, just I have to go discipline my children. That's like the straight up truth. Came home, laid the smack down, grounded me, punished me, whatever. And that happened more than once. And after like the second or third time, I was just like, when mom's out, everyone on their best behavior. And it taught me to be a good person, to be a good kid. I wasn't perfect, but I knew to conduct myself well, and that there would be consequences for poor actions. But most parents, they delay the consequences, or the consequences take so long, or they don't even give them any. They just throw them in front of the TV and forget about it. And it's like, that's not good parenting. That's not, where's your personal integrity? You're raising your child. You threatened them, or you gave your word. Like, if you misbehave, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, or you're going to be punished or whatever. And none of them follow through. And this lack of follow through on so many parents, not mine, mind you, but so many parents, causes huge problems. And it raises a terrible generation with no responsibility, no personal integrity, no discipline. And all it takes is a little bit of guts, like, most bosses would understand if you have to do something with your kid. If it happened every 2 seconds, maybe not, but you got a few of those in the chamber. And so, but most parents are just too lazy or apathetic or stuck in their comfort zones or something. I don't want to judge, and I don't really know, but something is stopping most of them, and it didn't stop mine. And it taught me to have personal integrity and to keep my word and to do what I say. And if there needs to be consequences for someone's behavior, I will make sure those consequences are delivered. Not in a mean way or a harsh way or whatever, just in a I'm ready to do what it takes way. And I would love more people to have this attitude. And the second thing was, what would I like to do differently from my parents, or different for the new generation, show a new way? And what I'd like to show differently is is that parents and teachers and society educates kids on so many different things, reading, writing, computers, you name it. They try to teach them to be a positive person or something, mental health, etc. But where is the teaching for the next generation of how to create their own reality, like how to achieve desired results, right? There should be some teachings or a process or some steps or something to achieve desired results in anything, really. If your kid wants to have a successful podcast, they should know how to do that. Generally, if your kid wants to become the world's best swimmer, they should know how to do that and achieve that. Generally, I would love to see common daily everyday teachings about achieving desired results and creating our own reality in the way that we want it, to live an empowered life, an abundant life, a thriving life. What we all want for our kids is how to thrive, but no one teaches it, and most of the parents aren't thriving themselves, so how could they teach it? And to me, this would be a game changer, an absolute game changer, because I want to evolve humanity. If you imagine all the little kids who know how to achieve desired results, and to me, it's just like cooking. Like, they might use a microwave, they might use an oven, they might go a different route or do a different thing or use a barbecue or become vegan or go raw. But the basics of consumption, of like heating food or preparing food and consuming it, should be taught. And the basics of achieving a goal or achieving a desire or creating an environment or a reality or an experience that you want to have, this basic foundation or principle must be taught. And I'm going to do it myself, like if I have to. It looks like I have to, so hence the podcast.
No, I love the perspective. Just because I probably sound like every other person my age, but I think for some reason I picked it up pretty easily. I don't know why, but finance, just like people coming out of high school. And the way you're pitching it, you're even doing it on a much, like, you're thinking a much smaller level. Like, this is what I'm putting into the system, my inputs, and this is the outcome. I need to know what the outcome of my actions are. Like, if I want to do something, most people, from what I've seen, they just go their 9 to 5. They're not really understand the outcome of your actions and your drive. No,
You're 100%
I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I take it a step further. It's understand the results of your attitude and your approach and your state of being, like,
Yeah.
there are results that come from an attitude and an approach and a state of being, and that's not even taught either.
Yeah. No, that's great. I like it. And what's the funny part? I don't think I've gotten a same response from a lot of people, and I still haven't, even after this episode. That's funny.
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's a really good question.
But yeah, thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah.
You guys were amazing to talk to.
Thank you so much, man. Great podcast, great vibe, great questions, great listening.
And
I love
you guys want to shout out your podcast and where they can find you, or like what's your preferred social media?
We are focused solely on YouTube right now, and we are at Eyes Wide Open Pod.
Yep.
Okay.
Eyes Wide Open Pod.
Eyes Wide Open Pod. Check it out, people.
If you like this week's episode of People More Interesting Than Me, please follow me on Apple Podcasts so you won't miss out on more episodes like these.